Ozme and I returned to Section 1 to find a grim-faced Masuki and Ayumu seated in the reception area.
どうした？何か分かったのか？
ああ、時坂さん。
Masuki looked up only to show me the most bemused expression I'd seen from him in 6 years.
なんだお前。あの部屋から出てきた鍵を。
それなのですが。
Ayumu abruptly presented me with a letter situated in a vinyl bag.
もう二度と会えないかもしれない友へ。俺は自分の天国を見つけに行く。なんだこれは。
Depart in search of my own heaven. So if we compare that to the story we read about, so he's what, on his own journey of redemption? Is that what they're trying to say?
ナオリからの手紙です。
Naori Kuroya? Now that was a name I hadn't expected to hear.
鑑定がまだ済んでいないので本当かどうかは分かりません。ただ、ひながみあやとさんへ宛てた手紙だそうです。
Ayumu gave Masuki a look, to which he responded by promptly showing me another vinyl bag, this one with the envelope in it.
確かにこんな文章。
そうなんですよね。
Masuki's frown deepened.
ただ、何を伝えようとしているのかが全くわからないんです。
From what I could tell, it seemed like a farewell message, one for a person you never planned on seeing again, but that clearly wasn't what Masuki was implying here.
事件との関係はありそうなのか？
I turned to Ayumu.
それはまだ証拠が出てきていません。
Ayumu shook her head.
ちょっといいですか、時坂さん。
なんだ？
もしナオリが事件に関わっていたとするなら、遺体が発見された後になってから出ていくことはないと思うんです。
Yeah, sounded like the sort of point I would have expected this guy to make.
そんな疑われやすいことはしないと？
ええ。考えられるとするなら、周囲がにわかに騒がしくなる予感がして気がつかれる前に出て行ったという感じじゃないかと。
Ironically, that hadn't really helped Naori Kuroya's case, considering it only made him look more suspicious in the end. Maybe this had been a completely unexpected turn of events for him that forced his hand. If so, what happened to that girl? Practically collapsed onto the sofa as if I had a rug pulled out from under me.
時坂さん？
Yeah? Did you come to the conclusion that I did, Reiji? That the girl that was put on display like that might have been put on a brave face. Brave enough to hopefully fool Masuki and Ayumu anyway. After all, my own personal mission was irrelevant to the case we were currently tackling. Especially if Naori Kuroya really did have nothing to do with the murder. But I...
やつはあの部屋で一人暮らしだったはずだ。
ええ、管理人の方もそうおっしゃっていました。
So he's been living on his own for at least 3 years. Huh. Don't tell me that means she's...
きっとどこかに預けているんだと思います。
I knew Masuki was just trying to cheer me up. We had no proof of that.
子連れで身を隠すのはどうしても目立ちますし、世話をするのも難しいでしょう。割と早い時期に孤児院などに預けていたのかもしれません。
That girl in the fields still could have been his daughter. Like, obviously it's trying to make us believe that then Reiji's daughter is one of the girls in the bunker, right? That still doesn't mean there's a positive ending for this. Yeah, that would add up.
付近の孤児院も調べてみます。あ、でも預けた場所から離れたところに潜伏していたということも。
その場合、住居を引き払った後に預け先を訪れることも考えられるから、広範囲で調べるべきかもしれない。
Oh. When you think about it, like in the story, like obviously the fact that Mary and Lily were the same person, that's something to consider, but like if you think about it in the story, at the end of the journey, Mary entrusts Lily to someone else, and then her journey ends. Even though they say that Lily never existed, right? But Lily's story wasn't quite over. Even if you accept that Lily never existed, it said whether you were granted to Anthropos depends on your impression upon Aphrodite. So I think, in a sense, that could be read as, you know, he's entrusting the girl to someone else, and if the people, tracking him down are competent enough, they can save her and grant her the, joy that she deserves, right? Grant her the life that she deserves. The two of them were coming up with plans and suggestions while I was still flopped on the couch, dreading the worst case scenario.
そうだな。孤児院の調査は警察に任せてもいいのか。
So it could be that he, I don't know, maybe he had connections with the guy who has the bunker. I don't know. That's the questions. Like, if she's one of the girls in the bunker, how did that trade-off happen, right? Or was Naori aware of what was going on and had figured it out himself and purposefully left the girl alone as bait so that she get taken? I don't know.
連れ去られた子と同年代の少女で預けられた時期とその経緯について調べるのであれば。
わかった。じゃあ明日からは俺たちはもう一度現場付近で。
I ended the discussion right then and there. Not just because it was getting dark, but because I didn't believe I could bear to carry on with this topic for any longer. Okay. Now it's getting spicy.
いらっしゃい。あら、まだお仕事中？
Kyoko hailed Ozumi the moment he stepped into Moonworld.
奥を少し借りるぞ。
Ozumi headed for the table furthest from the door with no further explanation.
あ、コーヒーを2人分お願いします。
Ayamo gave Kyoko their orders as she trailed after her
し
superior.
かし、なんだってそんなところに潜んでいたんだ。
Ozumi waited until Kyoko had served their coffees and returned to the counter before kicking off the conversation. He was referring to Naoto Kuroya's recently abandoned hiding hole, of course.
それについてはまだ何も分かっていません。
あの時俺は捜査に当たってなかったかな。最後の消息は奥多摩だったんだろ。
And again, those were probably just the excuses the task force had made back then to dodge the fallout of failing to find him.
3年そこに潜んでいたとなると、一体何を捜査していたんだってこと。
不審人物として付近の住人からは見られていたようですが、警察への通報までには至らなかったようです。
そりゃあ何かしたってんならともかく、怪しいってだけで通報されても困るだろ。
I mean, I don't know about that. Like, I can only imagine. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know what 1950s Japan looks like. Why I know how 2020s America acts like. Believe me, I've had the cops called on me for not doing shit. So, I don't know about that one. Worse, people tended not to pay matters that didn't directly concern them much mind for long. That depends on the neighborhood you're in. Thus, even the most dangerous of fugitives could pass themselves off as perfectly normal, if quirky law-abiding citizens to their neighbors, so long as they knew to keep their heads low for long enough. The more time passed, the less people paid attention to their fellow man.
それで先日の遺体発見の直後に部屋を引き払っています。
正確にはいつだ。
あ、はい、16日に出て行ったそうです。
遺体発見の翌日か。
That gap was so small that it stank too much to be a simple coincidence.
家具などは捨てられていたのを発見して確認しましたが、机、本棚、布団しかありませんでした。
すぐに引き払うことは可能だな。
死体遺棄事件の
その部屋で一人暮らしだったんだろう。ずっと前にさらったのを養っていたとも思え。
Naoto Kuroya had only killed a single person, according to the reports Ozumi had read. What's more, there was so little information on what he'd been doing during his time with the Blessed Congregation that pinning this crime on him would be quite the stretch.
周辺で面倒が起こったから逃げたということだろうな。事実今回のように不審人物として挙げられることもあるからな。
では、今回の事件とは。
今のところはな。関係しているとすりゃ、黒谷直織よりもなんだ、天罰の絵の事件の方だな。
Yeah, speaking of that Exile of Paradise painting, like, I'm still waiting to hear what Fumiya's fucking motives behind stealing that were.
そちらはすでに関係者が逮捕されていますよね。
ただ、あの絵が六色誠に渡った理由はわからないのはまだ。
See, they're under the impression that Rokshiki had the painting. What we saw from Roroshki's perspective, he fucking snuck into the clinic and saw the painting already there. Where's my answers there?
気に留めておきます。
今は気に留めるだけにしておけよ。目の前の事件を捨ておくわけにはいかねえからな。
わかりました。
ま、刑事じゃねえやつは向こうを調べるだろうが。
And there was nothing Ozumi could do to stop him. Not as a policeman or a friend.
では、私はそろそろ。
おう。
Ayumi saluted and left money for her coffee before departing without another word.
しっかりしているわね。
最近の若いやつにしては上出来で。
Ozumi shot a look over at the entrance from his new spot at the counter.
あら、年寄りみたいなこと言っちゃって。
うるせえよ。
Ozumi tossed another sugar cube into his coffee. Kyoko grinned. Have you thought about my offer? Ozumi steeled himself as he stirred the sugar.
何？
今抱えている件の片がついた。
Oh right, this is that's right. He made that offer before the time skip. Sorry, I forgot. Like there was the whole 6-year gap here. Like they've already, you know, sealed that deal.
そうね。ずっと先延ばしにしていたものね。
Kyoko nodded slightly.
答えは急がねえさ。
Ozumi drank his coffee.
お前さんの気持ちは分かってるからよ。
ありがとう。それと。
Back to Bunker Girl? One of them anyway? Because there seems to be like 3 of them, right? From what I can tell, there's this one, which is the first one we saw, who was in the bookshelf room. There's the second one, who has like a bed and like an actual room, who was like freely able to leave her room to go to like the common area, I guess, where, you know, they drop the basket down the hole. But then there's a third one who was like curled up on a couch, who then had the creepy girl crawling in through the floorboard. So it seems like we've got eyes on like 3 different girls here. The girl awoke to what she could have sworn was a sound. Is that a rat or something? Curious, she sat up and scanned the room. The light was still on. It wasn't long before she spotted a basket she'd never seen before in the center of the floor. Within it was bread and a thermos. Oh yeah, I haven't eaten in forever. The girl's stomach growled the moment she saw the food. Then she got to her feet and checked the basket. There were 2 rolls of bread resting inside. While one of them was plain, the other appeared to be buttered. Meanwhile, the thermos contained water. The girl poured some into the lid and drank from there. Her parched throat took in the cool water like a sponge. Next, she picked up the buttered bread roll. She then scooped some of the butter with her index finger and licked it. Much to her revulsion, though, it tasted bitter and stung the tip of her tongue somewhat. If she had to guess, it had probably gone rancid. The girl clutched the plain roll and took a tiny bite out of it. Though somewhat stale, it was still edible. She washed it down with some water from the thermos. However, she left the other roll untouched, even though it'd probably be edible if she wiped the butter off of it. I'll just save that for if I get really hungry. Wait, where did this bread come from? That question suddenly dawned upon the girl now that she actually felt alive again. Did someone come in and leave it here? She glanced at the door. The girl tried the doorknob, but it still refused to yield to her. Is there no other way out? The girl scanned the room once more with that thought. Brick walls, bookcases, refuse littering the floor. The girl went over to the wall and tried pushing one of the bricks. Figured she could get to the other side if it gave way. Sadly, the mortar locked the bricks so firmly in place that the girl couldn't even make it budge with her limited strength. No, I can't give up. Maybe there's something behind these bookcases. It was that notion which drove her to remove books from the nearest bookcase. Fortunately, all she saw behind them were more bricks. Thinking she was just wasting her time, the girl sagged onto the books she'd tossed to the floor. The light bulb above her cast shadows on them. The girl lay across the books as if they were a bed. She alternated between staring at the ceiling and the floor until eventually noticing that there was a raised floorboard in the corner of the room. Wait, maybe there's something under there. So there's a floorboard in all these rooms, and I'm guessing that's how the main girl, the girl who has access to the common area, is able to distribute the supplies to the other girls? The girl picked herself up and scurried over to that corner. She stuck a finger in the space beneath the raised floorboard and felt a rush of cold air. Thus she lifted the board, suspecting it might lead somewhere. And indeed, she found herself faced with a dark, gaping hole in its place. It appeared to be a gutter for drainage purposes. One that was just big enough for a child of her size to squeeze through. Nothing's gonna change unless I get out of here. The girl crawled into the gutter after stealing her resolve. Oh, I already don't like this. Okay, enough with the fucking sound effects. I'm fucking turning the sound effects off for now. Hey! Hey! Oh, is that video effects? Okay, sound effects. Where do I have it now? Just so I can check it later. There? Okay. Mute. That sounds just annoying, and I want to talk, damn it. But no, that shit. Ugh. Ugh. The idea of like, said it was just barely big enough, right? Just barely. Yeah, okay, not just barely, but it was just big enough for a child of her size to squeeze through. So like, clearly she's not the one going through the tube. But I'm guessing if she doesn't know how to properly go through it, she might get stuck in there. And that kind of... Oh. Bro, that fills me with the... Oh, fucking terror, dude. It was cramped and putrid down there. Mud got all over her elbows, knees, face, and clothes. However, the girl saw light shining from the end of this tunnel. And so she intrepidly crawled forward. The light was dim and seemed to be escaping through small gaps, much like in the girl's room. However, the further she went, the broader and brighter it became. Eventually, she found herself beneath what appeared to be a floorboard, much like the one in her room. Is it like a horizontal gutter then? Oh. So she's the girl that crawls in through... Okay. Here, I'll turn my sound effects back on. The girl pushed the board up and emerged through the newly exposed hole. There she found herself faced with a room similar to the one she just escaped, though it had a bed, and there were otherwise no major differences between it and her own. And all of a sudden she noticed someone else was in the room. The two silently eyed each other for a while, surprised by this unexpected encounter. Okay. The room's occupant was a girl of about the same age. Who are you? Apprehensively asked the girl who just crawled in there. I could ask you the same thing, you know, replied the room's occupant, shining a flashlight on the girl. So the girl introduced herself as Iroha, explaining that she'd been trapped in this place. Subsequently, the room's occupant introduced herself as Manami, revealing she was in the exact same boat. Neither of them knew precisely where they were. Manami had managed to leave her room, but all she discovered was that they were someplace underground. Curious, Iroha exited the room led by Manami. There she found what appeared to be part of a tunnel with a dome-shaped ceiling. Unfortunately, the area was poorly lit, so she couldn't make out exactly what was at the other end. However, it appeared to be a wall sealing them inside. The tunnel was flanked on both sides with numerous doors. Iroha found the one that appeared to lead to her room, only to discover it was locked on the outside as well. Manami proceeded to inform her that all the rooms were locked and that the only reason she managed to escape hers was because its door had a broken hinge. Iroha knocked on the nearest door, surmising there could be others besides two of them, but heard nothing from the other side. Undeterred, she eyed the doors on the opposite wall. Both sides had 3 doors each. What's more, there was a wooden table in the center of the tunnel. Manami explained food was put on there every day. Hearing that confused Iroha. After all, if that was true, then why had she found those bread rolls in her room? When she told Manami about that, Manami reasoned that an adult must have put them in there for her. She recounted how she had seen such a person in the tunnel this one time she peeked out her door. However, she didn't believe this person was out to kill them, seeing as how they were being kept fed. Manami then returned to her room, retrieved a bamboo basket and set it on the table. There was still a perfectly untouched bread roll in there. Manami split it in two and offered one half to Iraha. Iraha thanked her and willingly took the bread, since she'd been saddled with an inedible piece herself. "We've got to come up with a way to get out of here," said Manami. Thus, she suggested they investigate their prison. Iraha was all for that. Though she had no idea how long she'd been there, she wanted to escape and let her parents know she was okay as soon as possible. Manami headed for the door opposite her own and knocked on it. "Weird. It's open," she said not too long after, then tried the knob. "Is this where I find Couch Girl?" However, no one was in there. Oh. It was just an empty room, much like Iraha and Manami's, even down to there being a gutter by the wall. Perhaps since she'd already confirmed earlier that the rooms were locked, Manami suggested that they use the gutter to get into them from below, much like Iraha had just minutes ago. Thus she ventured in the room and started removing the floorboard before Iraha even had time to agree with her. Manami smiled as she worked, saying she never expected to find a secret passage in a place like this. She also suggested that maybe the gutter could lead outside, but unfortunately it was too dark to check. And so she quickly revisited her room and returned with the flashlight she'd used earlier. After checking the gutter and determining she could fit inside it, Manami descended into it. Iraha quickly followed suit. Nope, not playing that game again. That sound is just annoying. Like, there's been times where, like, the sounds are, like during, like, some of the murder scenes where, like, the sounds, like, kind of gross me out a bit, make me cringe a little bit. That loud-ass dragging noise is fucking annoying. I do not like it. Iraha crawled through the gutter just like she had when she'd escaped her room. Like, it'd be one thing if it, like, played for a little bit and then stopped. But the fact that it's constant until you have read to a certain point, it's like, no, I don't want to be hearing that blasting in my ears as I'm reading. Not constantly like that. However, she felt calmer now that she had Manami with her. Suddenly, Manami came to a halt, causing Iraha to bump into her. It was too dark to tell for sure. It looked to Iraha like Manami was fiddling with something. A ray of light shone down from above just then. What's more, Iraha could hear someone. Wait, I know that voice. Iraha brushed Manami aside and emerged from the gutter. Okay, now we stumble onto Couch Girl. I'll turn sound effects back on. A girl around Iraha's age was sitting in the room. However, to say Iraha knew her was an understatement. Haruka. For it was none other than her best friend, the one she'd been playing with just before she got kidnapped. Haruka hugged Iraha as soon as she noticed her. She clung to Iraha for dear life, weeping. Iraha felt herself breaking down as well when she heard Haruka sobbing. Tears trailed down her cheeks. Their tearful embrace continued for quite some time. Now that they were reunited, Iraha remembered how she got in here. She recalled a man calling out to Haruka while they were on their way home from the park. He told Haruka that a member of their family had collapsed. Manami practically rolled her eyes after hearing that, calling it the oldest kidnapping trick in the book. Since she and Haruka didn't know each other, Iraha introduced them. Manami went on to inform them that she'd been trapped down here for as long as she could remember. However, she believed that all three of them had been kidnapped by the same mysterious man. She then urged her newfound companions to work with her to find a way to escape, to which they enthusiastically agreed. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's still like several days before, Reiji and the gang crack the case and get to the bomb shelters. So I'm curious what's going to happen. Because, like, we know the body that gets propped up in the fields, not the one that gets angel-fied, but, like, the one that gets, like, thrown under a stone or something in some kind of field. It had some kind of, like, silly-ass name, right? That I thought was hilarious. We'll have to see it again when it pops up, but in those fields, it said, like, the body was, like, old and decomposing and whatnot. So I don't think that would be either of these three girls then. So like, there's already one that's been angel-fied, but that wouldn't be any of these three girls. Well, not necessarily. Because we don't know for sure that these scenes are taking place on the same day. I think more than likely they are, but we don't know that for certain. But let's just assume they are. I don't think either three of them would be the ones that they find under the stone, because they said that body was badly decomposed and was like really rotted away. And I don't think in just like a week's time it would be that bad. But then again, I don't fucking know. I don't know how slow or quickly bodies decompose. So it's interesting. Because like something's very curious to learn more about this group of girls. I went to CID section 1. Wait. No, okay, this is unread. Okay. Chances are the rest of this is going to be mostly unread because of everything about the revelation of Naori. I went to CID section 1 only to find a stunned Ayumu staring at me.
時坂先生、大丈夫ですか？
Don't worry about it. I traipsed right by her and parked myself on the visitor sofa. It's been a full day since I learned that she hadn't been with Naori Kuroya. As it turned out, I needed every minute of it just to recover from the revelation. I'd understood that it was always a possibility, of course, seeing as how it had been 6 years. However, the only way I could cope now that I knew it to be true was by forcing myself to focus on the other matters.
やつを追うのは正木に任せることにしたよ。
As for me, I just wanted to throw myself into this murder case to distract my heart and mind.
魚住は
警部は
そうか。
Oh, got to Mosky's POV. Mosky took a rickety bus from this place to Chofu Station. His plan was to go around questioning the locals about the suspicious man they believed to be Naori Kuroya, just as he said he would yesterday. Mosky procured his notebook and retrieved a piece of paper he'd stuck inside it. It was a sketch of Naori that Chie Kuboy had once drawn for him. While the paper had faded and aged during its time in police custody, the portrait itself was still mostly intact, fortunately. Then again, that wasn't too surprising, considering it had only been sitting around for 6 years, not 60.
さてと
Mosky decided his top priority would be to pay the Nauticos another visit. Thus, he set out for their home on the northern side of Chofu Airfield. Mosky scaled the short hill atop which the Nautico resident sat. He arrived just as none other than Akiyuki Nautico himself was emerging from the family's barn.
おや、先日の。
どうも鳴子さん
Mosky bowed to Akiyuki before approaching the older man. Akiyuki set down a basket he'd been carrying and removed a pair of work gloves. Tools for some sort of farm work, most likely.
何か進展はありましたか？
Mosky hadn't, of course. Since he wasn't with the police, he was hesitant to give the girl's father a straight answer.
今日はこの近所で目撃されている不審者についての情報を集めてまして
So instead, Mosky drew out his notebook, figuring he should take care of his primary task first.
ああ、家内が言っていたやつですね。
奥様は今どちらに
Mosky's eyes shifted to the house proper.
買い物に行っているようです。いつ頃戻ってくるかはちょっと。
That's too bad. Suppose I'll have to make do with what I can then.
この男だと思われるんですが
Mosky showed him Naori's sketch.
数年前のものですので
Akiyuki studied the face portrait, furrowing his brow.
彼は以前赤ん坊を連れ去りそのまま消息を絶っています
Mosky quickly appended an abridged explanation.
どうですか
Even Mosky realized he'd probably come off as more impatient than he'd intended the moment he finished speaking.
この辺りではちょっと。
Akiyuki shook his head.
そうですか
Seems I really would be better off asking his wife instead.
ではまた後日奥様がいらっしゃる時に話を伺うことにします
ええ、わかりました。
Mosky found the Sagasa residence with the guidance of a map. While not terribly far from the Nauticos, it was still his first time there, seeing as how Reiji and Ayumu had been the ones who'd initially covered it, so he hadn't wanted to risk getting lost. Though those two had shared what they had learned with Mosky, he was a bit concerned that the Sagasas might not believe he was affiliated with the case regardless. Still, he had to give it a
ど
shot.
ちらさん？
Suddenly, someone hailed Masaki. Turned to find a middle-aged man working the fields.
三枝光雄さんですね
Took a second, but fortunately, Masaki had written the name of the missing girl's father in his notebook, so he remembered quickly enough.
ええ、自分が光雄ですが。
自分は警視庁から委託を受けて 事件捜査の協力をしている正木と言います。
おお、ええ、確かに来てました。
Mitsuo's eyes betrayed glints of hope. But of course, it was his daughter who was missing after all.
実はこの近辺で不審者の目撃情報がありまして。
不審者。
Mitsuo cocked his head.
数年前の似顔絵で恐縮なのですが。
Husky showed Naori's face portrait to Mitsuo.
この人が。
Mitsuo furrowed his brow after seeing the sketch.
まだそうと決まったわけではあり。
No evidence had come forward implicating Naori, at least.
この辺りで見たことはないです。
Mitsuo shook his head.
そうですか。
ええ、中におりますが、話はちょっと。
何かあったのですか。
娘がいなくなってから塞ぎがちになってしまって、体調を崩しているんです。
あ、それは配慮が足らず申し訳ありません。
Muskie bowed. Anyone would be a wreck when dealing with the abduction of their own family member.
いえ、お話は後日落ち着いてからでもか。
ええ、それはもちろんです。
I suppose I'll just have to give them a day too.
それではまた後日よろしくお願い。
Muskie took a short walk over to Naori's neighborhood and questioned the locals afterward. They didn't know anything that sounded pertinent to the case. Several people recognized his sketch. Oded said they'd never seen the man in the company of anyone else over the last year or two. Not only that, but no one had seen him moving, nor had they any idea of where he'd gone. All they really knew was that he'd been a quiet man who kept to himself during his stay. Not once did they mention the recent murder or even the abduction of the baby that kicked off his fugitive life. Thus, in his heart of hearts, Muskie was of the mind that he really had been Naori Kuroya. Furthermore, Muskie also didn't believe that Naori had anything to do with this case. He couldn't imagine his old friend and cousin remodeling a corpse into the fallen angel straight out of Shinzo Mamiya's Exile of Paradise. Wait a minute. It's not Fumiya, is it? Because he has the painting, right? I can't possibly begin to imagine what Fumiya's motive could be. But the fact that they left everything about Fumiya like open-ended without any answers, right? The fact that they threw the whole wrench into it about the fact that Rokshiki never took the painting, that it was Fumiya. So as far as we know, well, no. MPD took the painting back, I think. So it's probably not Fumiya. I don't know. Maybe he did his best to try to recreate it from memory, even without the painting. I can't imagine why Fumiya would do that, but then again, I've learned so much about Fumiya. Or no, I haven't learned so much. I've learned that there's so much I didn't know about Fumiya. I learned that there is much more to Fumiya than I ever realized. But the fact that Fumiya was the last one to have that painting before the police took it back, like that's... the fact that Rokshiki had no involvement with that was strictly Fumiya. Makes a man question things. After all, this was the same man who said he wanted to save children. And Muskie wanted to believe he'd meant that. God damn. Back to the bunker girls, alright. Okay, we're in, what's-her-face's room? Haruka, there we go. Haruka woke up. Oh, I must have dozed off. Her friend Ira was sleeping right next to her. Never could Haruka have imagined how reassuring it'd be simply to know she wasn't alone in this. How long did I sleep? There's no clock nearby. As such, she had no idea what time it was, or how long she'd been trapped down here. Suddenly, Haruka realized the other girl, Manami, wasn't there. Maybe she's sleeping in another room. The door was still locked, so she probably crawled her way out through the gutter again. It was Manami who suggested they all sleep in the same room. That way they wouldn't be as scared no matter what came their way. She also rationalized that even their kidnapper would be hesitant to make a move against them if they were all grouped up. And yet that very same girl wasn't there now, as if spitting in the face of her own logic. Yeah, no, that should make you question things. Haruka gently rocked Iraha awake. Iraha groggily opened her eyes. However, she sat up and attentively surveyed her surroundings after Haruka told her Manami was gone. When she didn't see Manami anywhere, Ira suggested she left the room, and that perhaps this was when the kidnapper came to deliver them bread. Oh no, if she's right, it's too dangerous to be out of the room right now, isn't it? Ira reassured Haruka that Manami was probably fine, since she'd been here a lot longer than the two of them. And yet, she still looked up nervously at the door even after saying that. Suddenly a noise rang from the gutter behind them. Haruka turned around to find a bamboo basket emerging from it. Huh? Oh, is that you, Manami? Asked Haruka. She hurried over and picked up the basket. There were bread rolls and thermoses inside. A pale hand extended from the gutter in short order, revealing Manami. According to her, she found the full basket on the table in the hall. Manami rose to her feet and wiped the mud off her clothes. Ira asked if the man had heard her, but Manami reassured her that she'd kept herself hidden. A moment later, she took bread rolls out of the basket and offered them to her fellow captives. While Haruka gratefully accepted hers, Ira refused, simply staring at the bread. Manami put it in her hand, telling her she needed to eat to keep her strength up. Ira then brought up how she'd been given a spoiled roll of bread yesterday, hence her hesitation. However, Manami reminded her that they had nothing else to eat. That won Iraha over. Thus was it that she took a bite out of the edge of her roll, albeit reluctantly. Haruka bit into her own after seeing that. However, her tongue stung the moment she did. The bread was so foul that she threw up. Ira asked her what was wrong, but Haruka could barely make out her friend's face with her blurred vision. Tears gushed out of her eyes as she continued vomiting. Her tongue was so numb that she couldn't even speak. God damn. Manami picked up Haruka's bread and found a discolored spot where it had been soaked in something. Haruka took a thermos and rinsed her mouth out over and over again. Though her tongue was no longer numb, probably because she'd thrown up the bread so fast, it still felt a bit swollen. Haruka wondered why someone would do this. Punishment. Manami threw away the poisoned bread, remarking that their kidnapper was trying to kill them. Then I almost died? The simple thought of it drove Haruka to tears all over again. Manami broke her bread and gave some to Haruka. But though Haruka appreciated the sentiment, she couldn't bring herself to take a bite just yet. Damn. Okay. Interesting. CID Section 1's reception area. Essentially turned her own personal office over the last few days.
どうもこうも芳しくはありませんよ。
あそこを出た後の足取りは追えないのか。
ええ。管理人から聞いた限りでは、容姿こそあまり変わってないと思いますが、調布駅でも目撃情報が見つからないんですよ。
最寄りの西調布や玉墓地前は調べたのか。
当たり前じゃないですか。それでも名残を見たという人は現れませんでしたよ。
まさか飛行機を使ったりはしていないだろうが。
調布は旅客機の運航がありませんから。
I am arrived just then.
それは分かっているさ。で、何か出たのか。
ええ、被害者の遺体から。
そういえば、名残の消息を追っている時に、エデンの少女という小説の原稿を見つけました。あ
あ、当時からざっと聞いている。
ええ、おそらく。公開は控えた方がいいですよね。
I hadn't read the manuscript for myself yet. That said, now I was considering checking it out, even if I could only see a copy of it, not the real thing. Not that I knew if it held some sort of secret or not, mind.
そうだな。奴がそれを望んでいる節もある。向こうの思惑に乗る必要もないだろう。
ええ。
Ozumi strolled over after Masuki left.
佐藤、頼まれていた資料だ。
Oh, nope. The skip stop. This is during that scene where, like, Masuki goes over to Yukari's place and they're all soaked in rain and whatnot. No. Yukari went to Masuki's place. She's soaked in rain because she brought equipment from the lab, yeah. No one said a word. All they could hear was the rain outside.
雨、強くなってきましたね。
Masuki, I swear to God, if you make a move, kicking your ass. Yukari looked out the window to find raindrops pelting the glass so hard that she couldn't even see a thing. Masuki reached out and turned on the radio.
警報ですか。
そのようですね。
Masuki got to his feet.
ちょっと外の様子を見てきます。
気をつけてくださいね。
玄関から外を見るだけですよ。
Masuki flashed Yukari a smile before passing through the door, only to instantly return looking like a steep tea bag.
はあ、ちょっと待った方がいいですね。マンホールから水が溢れてきてます。
まあ。
Yukari handed Masuki a towel as she looked up to the ceiling. If anything, the pattering of raindrops against the roof was only growing into a howl.
寒くありませんか？
私は大丈夫ですよ。それよりも
Yukari stepped on her tiptoes and wiped Masuki's hair.
ストーブの前で温まってください。
そうだね。
Yukari continued drying Masuki's hair as the latter sat down in front of the heater. Did I do this for Reiji before? I feel like I did. However, Masuki's hair seemed to dry considerably easier, seeing as it wasn't curly like his.
どうかしたのか？
Masuki looked up when he heard that giggle escape Yukari's lips.
いえ、なんでも。しばらく帰られそうにありませんから。
Yukari managed to slap a bare bones dinner together for herself and Masuki out of leftover rice and slightly wilted radish.
ごちそうさまでした。
お粗末様でした。
Yukari picked up the dishes and headed for the kitchen. The rain was still pounding as fiercely as earlier.
どうやら日付が変わる頃までは降るみたいだね。
Masuki realized what he'd heard over the radio as he sat by the heater.
そうですか。
If I can't leave tonight, then that means I'll have to. Yukari snuck a peek at Masuki out of the corner of her eye. However, he didn't seem the least bit flustered by this unexpected turn of events. Yukari breathed an unconscious sigh of relief when she saw that. The kettle started hissing on the stove. Yukari brewed green tea in a teapot and set it atop the tea table.
ありがとう。
いえ、
It was then that Yukari noticed Masuki was no longer by the heater. Though feeling a bit guilty, she took up his old spot. It's much warmer over here than it was in the kitchen. Unfortunately, that didn't last long. For suddenly, the flame in the heater sputtered out and faded like a shooting star.
灯油がなくなってしまったのかもしれませんね。
Masuki leaned over and checked the heater before shaking his head.
予備は
Where's your spare? He's like, spare? However, Masuki's face only fell at that. It seemed that had been the last of his stock. There's no way they could go out and buy more in this weather. Though the two of them were still warm enough for the time being, it'd only get colder as the night progressed. Yeah, they're gonna have to cuddle, aren't they?
毛布を出した方が良さそうだね。
Masuki rose to his feet and retrieved a futon from his closet. Meanwhile, Yukari dragged the tea table off and put away the chilled oil heater.
すみません。
いえ、
Since the full futon would have taken up just about the whole room, Masuki left the underquilt folded and set it in the corner. He then handed Yukari a blanket that she subsequently threw over her
美
shoulders.
咲さんは寒くありませんか？
自分はコートを着ますよ。
Masuki smiled and donned his coat as if he'd been waiting for her to say that. Then he sat down and leaned against the futon.
ゆかりさんは明日も大学ですか？
ええ。その前に一旦帰らなければなりませんが。
She didn't know what rumors her more unprincipled colleagues would spread if she showed up to the lab wearing the same outfit 2 days in a row after all. That said, she could at least wager a guess. What do I do? Yukari turned away from Masuki, finding herself unable to look him in the eye. Her tea had already gone cold. Masuki, don't you dare. I'll kill you. I'll fucking end you.